One of them was a narc? They killed a cop? Good God. If the police could connect her to the scene, they'd never stop looking for her. She may need more than a week to hide out. She may be running for the rest of her life. She grabs her purse, takes out a cigarette, and lights one with trembling hands, throwing the lighter down, pacing the room. It was supposed to be easy. That's what Rick said. After it went down, they'd deliver a portion of the money back to Miami, then leave the country and hit a beach somewhere. Cassie loved to lie in the sun. It was another addiction of hers, easy and pleasurable, as the best highs were. But you could feel the light slipping away from you as the sun inched toward the leer of the horizon, pulling the darkness behind it like a black sheet. The high couldn't last forever. The sun had to set. The applause had to end. And eventually, everybody, absolutely everybody, had to go home. Then the craving would begin again. But that's what they'd come to LA for. That's why they'd driven so far. When they got that money, she wouldn't have to worry for a long time. They could do anything they wanted, go anywhere they wanted, find some dive in Mexico where she could stand on a stage in front of tourists at night and lie on a beach all day long. All they had to do was stay cool for one big drop. 1.2 million all unmarked bills. Almost 1 million of that cash was theirs. It was too much to pass up, no matter how dangerous. But she knew Rick was getting nervous. He'd been so angry with her.
"You're in here singing?"
Summertime. The article said they were searching for a Richard Squires in connection with the shooting. But she'd seen his body, lying in a pool of blood. She'd thought he was dead. Had he escaped? He must have, somehow. Oh, God. How badly hurt was he? Would he be looking for her? For the money? Should she try calling hospitals and find him before he found her? Maybe he'd been admitted somewhere. But who would she ask for? It would just raise red flags. Maybe she should try calling him herself. She knew the number for his burner phone. She could try it. If he didn't answer, fine. If he did, she could tell him she'd been afraid. That was why she took off. She thought everyone was dead. Would he believe her? She'd taken that money. He might think she was trying to rip him off. He'd probably try to kill her. She opens the laptop, unlocks the Wi-Fi, and taps on the keyboard, scanning the LA Times website. There's nothing new about Rick, but she keeps scrolling almost against her will, checking for any news about the kid who picked her up last night. Self-defense, she reminds herself. Self-defense. But there's nothing yet. Even so, there's a building pressure in her chest. She can't stay here. She has to find a place to hunker down for a few days. An hour in a hotel room? That was nothing. They'd barely spoken. But another night together? She can't risk Matt being able to identify her, not with all this news. She needs somewhere else to crash until things calm down. She thinks of Beth again. Her fingers tap the keyboard. Beth Croft. It's not the first time she's Googled her old friend. She'd done it many times over the years. She hadn't been surprised Beth wasn't on Facebook or Instagram. She'd always been so reserved. So Cassie had to dig deeper, even calling the alumni office at school. Beth hadn't been in touch there, either. But it was the name of that album that made the difference. Cassie finishes her search. Beth Crawford plus The Lotus Flower plus piano. And the same hit at the Steinberg Academy in Los Angeles comes up. She follows her old trail, sees the lovely, serious photo of her friend on the website next to her bio. Crawford Montgomery has a master's in music from the New England Institute of Music. She lives in Los Angeles with her husband, film producer Jay Montgomery. At first, Cassie was surprised. Beth had become a music teacher? It was the last thing either of them wanted to be in college. But Beth had always been so shy on stage. Maybe it was inevitable she'd slink off somewhere to teach. At least Cassie had been able to find her. She called the academy and used all her charm. We were roommates in college. I'd leave a message here that I wanted to be a surprise. I haven't seen her in years. But she can't call the place again, can she? Sorry, I lost the number. There's no way they'd give it to her again. Fuck. And then she remembers. She grabs her purse and empties it on the bed. Wallet, makeup, and the broken bracelet tumbling out. There's the matchbook from that dive outside Miami Beach where she sang jazz standards at night for broke tourists. When they gave her the number, she scribbled it. There. The LA number is scrawled inside the flap next to the name of the Steinberg place. But shit, she'd put all that info into her phone, too. She wasn't usually good about keeping up her contact list, but it was a sentimental thing to do, inputting her old friend's name and number. She'd taken the SIM card out weeks ago because Rick wanted to use untraceable burners leading up to the deal. But Beth's number was still on that phone. Rick knew her old roommate lived in LA because Cassie had made them listen to Beth's CD on the way up, telling him and Bobby stories about freshman year. Maybe Rick would remember Beth's name and somehow track her down there. Maybe it wouldn't be safe. Would Beth even want to help in the first place? She's not sure, but she doesn't have a choice. She has to find someone she trusts. And for Cassie Ogilvy, that's a very short list indeed.
Chapter 11. Good. Tuesday morning. The morgue is chilly as Good stares down at the face of his colleague and friend. A man 20 years younger than him. A young father. And a great cop. It isn't often Good feels the need to use the word tragedy, but he does now. His partner, Michelle Dawes, stands beside him, sighing heavily. Dawes is in her early 40s and single. "I'm married to the job," she always says. Good never considered he was married to the job, but his ex-wife did, which is why she isn't married to him anymore. Dawes has a great figure. The kids call it thick nowadays. Cocoa skin, full lips. The kind of girl Good might have fallen in love with when he was younger. Plus, she put up with him, no questions asked. She made going to work and doing things like this just a little easier. The pathologist snaps off his latex gloves and covers Detective Curtis Butler's face with the blue sheet. He pulls his own face mask down to hang beneath his chin. "I'm only half done. You know how many we had last night?" He motions to a wall of stainless steel crypts. 8. 8 OD victims. "When the hell is this going to stop, Frank? We can't keep up." "I know. It's a fucking mess," says Good. "It was supposed to be routine. Curtis wasn't even after Squires. He's just a courier. They wanted the supplier. Butler was just making his way up the chain." "He didn't even have backup," adds Dawes. "Didn't think he needed it." By the time first responders showed, everybody was dead, except Squires, who's gone. No money, no junk, a few grams on the floor maybe, but a total write-off. "Damn," says the pathologist, shaking his head. He grabs a clipboard and a blank autopsy sketch, indicating the bullet wounds, absorbed like a disturbed kid scribbling in a coloring book. Meanwhile, Good takes a swallow of his Gatorade. Dawes frowns, motioning to the "absolutely no food or drink in morgue" sign right behind him. Good just shrugs, turning to the pathologist. "You want to hear a damn thing?" The pathologist nods, finishing his sketch. 4 bodies, 2 handguns, 1 Kalashnikov. A house turned into firewood. Blood everywhere. I'm serious, you should have seen the place. But not one print. None we can use anyway, Dawes says. Doorknobs, light switches, cupboards, everything was wiped clean. Except for the empty beer cans, Good says. So we got Squires' prints. He was definitely in that house. They cleaned the rest of the place but left prints on beer cans? They left in a hurry, obviously. That explains it, says the pathologist, nodding to the crypts. I found traces of ammonia on the skinny guy's hands and clothes. The Kurt Cobain look-alike? Yeah, ran a check. He was covered in window cleaner. Good nods, remembering the Windex bottle on the kitchen table, a sign they were dealing with professionals who knew how to cover their tracks. I don't suppose you got any pretty blondes in there, he asks. The pathologist looks up, frowning. According to the landlady, Dawes says, a pretty blonde signed the lease on the place last week. 25, 30? Sorry, no pretty blondes, the pathologist says. He wheels Butler's body away, slamming the door on the crypt. The ache in Good's heart deepens, as if someone is leaning on his chest. Let's go, he says to Dawes, and she nods, putting away her notebook. But he notices anger and frustration mingling in her expression. He feels it too. The task force was breathing down their necks already, threatening to step in and take over the case. The spike in overdose victims was bad enough. Each one of those people had families with broken hearts, all pressuring the police to put an end to the crisis. But now, with Butler's death, internal affairs would be involved too. Everybody would be scrutinized, especially Good and Dawes. That's why, over the next 24 hours, any clue, every clue, no matter how small, will become an obsession.
Chapter 12. Beth. Tuesday morning. The metronome, a tireless time bomb, ticks away the seconds of her life. Click, click, click. I can't do this, the boy huffs, banging the keyboard in a clumsy tangle of notes. I hate it. Did you practice at all this week, Aiden? The boy doesn't answer, looking down at his hands, his dirty fingernails. I asked you a question. Did you practice at all this week? It doesn't seem as if you did. He still doesn't answer, but she hears him sniff. In the sunlight streaming through her window, she sees the transparent tear glide down his cheek. There's no point if you don't practice, she says, trying to keep her voice calm when she feels like crying herself. If you want to get any better, you have to practice. When I was your age, I practiced for 3 hours every day, sometimes 4. 3 hours every day, minimum. It was true. She'd been devoted to her instrument and improving her talent. A very serious young girl, everyone said. So determined and disciplined. All Beth cared about was the piano back then. I got better things to do, Aiden says. I hate it. He bangs the keyboard again and she grabs his wrists. Stop it, she says, trying not to scream, trying not to accidentally hurt him. There's no reason to get frustrated. You just have to learn to make practice fun. Pretend that you're on stage in a great theater with hundreds of people watching me. What? He squints at her. You. Hundreds of people watching you. Is she losing her mind? I don't want people watching me. Then what the hell are you doing here? But she didn't like people watching her either. She'd always had terrible stage fright. It makes her wonder what masochistic streak drove her to do this in the first place. She has a visceral worry that she's wasted every minute she's ever spent playing the piano, and it's basically all she's done with her life. That's why becoming a mother had been so important to her. For a while, that dream made this studio, these kids, this monotonous life, bearable. Even pleasant sometimes. Now it feels as if she's in the middle of a suspension bridge, so terrified of falling she can't take a step in either direction. She just has to reconcile herself to the fact she'll die here, petrified until her last breath. Aiden is still sniffling. Poor kid. He's usually such an attitude case,
but now he seems so much younger and vulnerable. She gets up, goes to her purse, and gives him a Kleenex. "Please don't cry," she says, "but I want you to practice this week, okay? I want you to promise me. Even if it's only 15 minutes a day, it'll help you improve. You'll enjoy it more when you get better, you'll see." But he still won't look at her, sniffing and sullen. How many times was she going to have this conversation with them? Was it something about her? Could she do nothing right? She couldn't be a good wife. She knew Jay was miserable with her. Certainly not a good mother. Maybe she'd never even be a mother. She wasn't even a good musician. Her one CD had piffled out miserably 7 years ago. All that money wasted on getting it produced for nothing. Pathetic. And now she's even a bad teacher. She doesn't have the patience. Sitting with these kids, all the busy moms coming and going, so frazzled and condescending to the music teacher. It makes her feel like a hired nanny. She wonders if this was how Margareta felt, being a housekeeper all her life. She tries to keep the despair out of her voice. "Okay, let's try it one more time." She places Aiden's trembling fingers on the keyboard, but he snaps them away, quite viciously. She freezes. She can't touch him again. This is getting too rough. She could be reprimanded, even fired. She looks at the clock. Still 10 minutes left. "All right then," she says, folding her hands in her lap. "We'll just sit here and wait." The metronome clatters. She turns it off. They sit in deafening silence.
Chapter 13. Jay. Tuesday morning. Jay's in the kitchen making his post-run shake when the house phone rings. He rushes to answer, expecting a call from Karen. She sometimes phones the landline by mistake. But he sees the caller ID, Omni Plaza Hotel, and backs away, letting the call go to the old machine, a clunker he brought home when they had to give up the production office last year. Another dent in his dignity. He grabs the blender as a woman's voice fills the room. Warm, throaty. Beth? Beth Crawford, right? I mean, of course it's you. I recognize your voice. This might freak you out a bit, but it's Cassie. Cassie O. He grabs his protein powder, opens the fridge for almond milk. It's been so long. Like, what? 10, 12 years? Seriously, B, that's way too long. Jay frowns, curious. He's never met any of Beth's old friends. There weren't any at their wedding. He had to insult his own frat buddies because she didn't have any bridesmaids to stand for her. When Jay pressed her about it, she said being around people from the past brought back too many memories of her parents. And he understood that. He certainly never heard her mention this Cassie chick before. The woman continues, her voice unpolished and raspy. Anyway, I'm on my way to Monterey and I heard you moved out here, so I had to look you up. Jay grabs a pomegranate from a bowl on the counter and the biggest Henkel from the knife block. He started adding fresh pomegranate to his shakes last year, pulverizing them in the blender. They were full of antioxidants and good for the prostate. A bitch to peel, but he's getting better at it. Saw how to do it on YouTube. He angles the knife over the center of the fruit, dragging the blade over it, opening a groove in the flesh that's so shallow he doesn't even have to wash the blade. I'd love to see you, man. We should try to hook up or something. Go for a drink. He pulls the two halves of the fruit apart, and they separate perfectly. It's a bloody mess scooping the seeds into the blender, red juices dripping, making him feel like he's Jack the Ripper disemboweling someone. He's never sure if the sharp twist in his stomach when he does it is disgust at the thought of hurting someone, or the desire to do it. Anyway, I'm in town for another couple days, but I'm a little hard to reach, so I'll try you later, okay? Can't wait to see you. And Beth? Great to hear your voice. But he hits the blender button, and the message is lost beneath the whir of the blades.
Chapter 14. Beth. Tuesday afternoon. In the empty studio, Beth is on her cell, dabbing at her eyes with a crumpled tissue. She's between students, alone, pacing the room, her heels sounding like a metronome on the wood floor. She needs to find a way to snap out of this and get her day back on track. But her heart dips when she hears Jay's outgoing message. Hey, you've reached Jay Montgomery of Vermont Films. Leave your name and number and I'll get right back to you. She hangs up. What was she going to say in a message? I'm jealous of one of my own 8-year-old students and I want to strangle the rest of them? He said he had a big meeting today. He doesn't need that stress right now. She's not even sure why she wanted to talk to him in the first place. They had such a bad night last night, and he never seemed interested in her music anyway, or her career. Cassie was one of the few people in the world who seemed to understand how she felt about music. How strange. She's thought about Cassie so much since last night. She remembers that man on the phone. Is Cassie there? And a tremor runs through her.
Chapter 15. Good. Tuesday afternoon. The tan Ford had been in the back of a Walmart parking lot. Nobody even noticed it until after the store opened and the lot started filling up. Someone saw the passenger side window shattered into a silver spider web, pierced with a single hole. A young man buckled over sideways in the front seat, almost lifeless, but coughing, drenched with blood. When Good heard the man had been shot and a 9mm shell casing had been found at the scene, he was curious. An attempted homicide, only a few miles from the murders, with the same type of gun? Good had to find out if the incidents were connected. He and Dawes watch as the team from the FSD traipse around the scene in white coveralls and booties, moving like astronauts on a strange planet. Name's Daniel Alvarez, says Dawes, consulting her notes. 21, critical condition. They've taken him to East L.A. It's a single shot, 9mm, basically point blank. He's had some problems, assault, resisting, but not for a while. They found this beside him. She holds up an evidence bag containing a Taurus PT-111, one of the cheapest semi-automatic pistols on the market. Recently discharged. Is it registered to him? No record of it. He peers into the car, seeing the bloodstain on the seat. Trafficking? Gangs? Hard to say. Could be gang-related. We found paraphernalia, too. Good's not surprised. This part of the world is mostly a middle-class neighborhood, but they still had their problems. The whole city seemed to. Paraphernalia? A broken pipe. Nothing too... But the roar of an engine drowns out her voice, and they turn to see a shiny black Dodge screech into the parking lot. A dark-haired young man climbs out from behind the wheel, moving quickly toward the scene. His eyes are glassy with tears, his jaw clenched. Detective Good? He nods. Nico Alvarez. His voice is clogged with emotion. I'm Danny's brother. They told me to talk to you. I think I know who did this. He was with a woman last night. The young man describes a white woman with long blonde hair carrying suitcases, who Alvarez picked up at a 7-Eleven not far from here. Good doesn't have to flip back through his notes. He remembers the K-9 unit tracked a suspect from the rental house to the parking lot of a nearby 7-Eleven before losing the scent. Good asks for more details. Scars, height, what she was wearing. Jeans, tank. She had lots of bracelets on her arms. I remember that. He rubs at his wrists. I'm sorry, man. I gotta get to the hospital. He backs up toward his car. This isn't his fault. Not saying it is. He's been keeping clean, going to school. You gotta find this bitch. We will, Good says.
Chapter 16. Jay. Tuesday afternoon. Jay wears a white towel around his waist as he scrolls through his phone. He sees 2 texts from Beth. "Please call. It's urgent." She left a voicemail, too. She probably wants to apologize for last night, or lay into him about Emily some more. Either way, he doesn't feel like talking to her. But he smiles when he sees Karen's number. He dials her back, sitting on the edge of the bed. He watches himself in the full-length mirror, his hair dripping. She picks up on the second ring. "Howdy, partner," she chimes. "Howdy back." God, the smile on his face. It's so bright, reminding him of when he was younger. "Sorry, I was in the shower." "No prob. I have a really important question for you." "Shoot." "Should I wear the blue suit or the red one?" Jay laughs. "Really important, huh?" "Everything's relative. So, what do you think?" "The red one. No competition." "Is that a personal preference?" There's a note of flirtation in her voice. And in his. "All men like red. Come on, you look great in that suit. Trust me, you'll knock him dead." "You're too kind," she says. "I'll see you at 1. Don't be late." She hangs up without saying goodbye. They decided years ago life was too short for goodbyes. Nobody said goodbye on the phone in movies, did they? But it still takes a moment before he puts down the cell, as if he's holding a part of her and doesn't want to let go. He loved hearing her voice. Beth had a nervous edge in her voice lately, even when they weren't talking about money or work or starting a family. It was as if she was changing into someone new, or was someone he hadn't known in the first place. He looks at his reflection again. The toned arms, the hard-won six-pack, the shoulders and pecs. His towel falls open a bit on his thighs. He feels the pulse of warmth rushing there. He finally puts down the phone. Has it really been over 3 months? Almost, anyway. He hadn't gone that long without sex since he was 14. Beth had never been the most hot-blooded woman he'd met, but he loved her, so he put up with it. He loved her, right? Things had been so full of hope when they met. She looked up to him. She enjoyed his energy, his confidence, and she made him feel good about himself. He was even able to curb his drinking a little bit, at least when they started talking about having kids last year. But she was so desperate to start a family, it changed everything. He hadn't realized how desperate until life became all about the baby, ovulation, temperature taking. Now. He had no idea sex could feel like work. The last few months had been even more difficult. Whenever he tried to touch her, she'd practically flinch. Yes, the doctor said it would take time, but how much damn time? He's getting sick of it. It's bad enough he's having trouble raising the money for the film. He has to worry about a depressed wife, too? It's going to work out. You're a brilliant producer. This is the one. Don't worry. Maybe he should get himself off. That's what he needs, to relax before the meeting. The towel falls open farther, and his hand slides down his abdomen. His thoughts travel to the meeting and to Karen. They'd been partners for almost 7 years, the longest relationship either of them had ever been in. More than twice as long as he'd known his wife. If this movie thing doesn't work out, they used to joke, we could always get married. It made them both laugh. The heat continues to work its way through him. He's just getting into it when his gaze travels to the framed photo on the nightstand. Oh, God. The picture is of Beth and her parents, posing outside the big white house in the Hamptons. Beth was 19 or 20 at the time, wearing a preppy yellow blouse, white shorts, her arms around her parents, both of them well-dressed and slim. Her father had a regal mustache, her mother an elegant manner about her. Everyone smiled in the sunshine, the Great Gatsby mansion glowing behind them. Every time he sees that photo, he feels a flash of regret, because he remembers how he teased Beth when they first started dating, that her parents were even more stuck up than his. To live outside of Philly and have a summer house in Southampton? What? The Poconos not good enough for you? He'd asked with a laugh. It seemed to make her uncomfortable. He thought it was because well-bred girls didn't like talking about money, but it wasn't just that. It was much worse. A shiver runs through his body when he remembers making the gaffe shortly after they'd met. She'd been sweet when she told him the story, trying not to hurt his feelings for being so thoughtless. How she got through it, he wasn't sure. Losing both parents to a drunk driver one summer night? When you were just a college freshman? He'd been to the Hamptons. He knew what those roads were like. Narrow and winding, some of them so dense with tree cover the GPS wouldn't work. It was like driving through an underground tunnel, just deadly. But he sees that big house in the background, and his mind shifts onto another track. Money. How much would that place have been worth back then? Before the crash? 30 million at least, maybe more. How had her parents gone through all that money? If they'd just been more... But he stops himself. His shoulders sag, and he gives a dry laugh. No way he feels like jerking off now. He closes the towel and stands up to get dressed.
Chapter 17. Beth. Tuesday afternoon. In line at the Starbucks next to the academy, Beth tries to hold it together, waiting for her coffee, her eyes still red from crying, her throat aching and raw. She grabs a paper from the rack and skims the first page. Bloodbath in Lawrence Heights. She tries to read the article, tries to share in LA's latest tragedy, but the words barely register, and finally, she's next in line. Tall Pike Place roast, please. Sure thing. Beth pays for her coffee, still smiling, but it fades the second the girl turns away. God, she just needs Jay to call her back, to have someone, anyone to talk to. She knows he had a big meeting today, but you'd think he'd pick up when she'd called and texted that many times. What if it was urgent? It is urgent. I'm dying here, she wants to tell him. And apparently no one cares. Not even me. Here you go, says the barista. Thanks. She forces another smile as she drops some nickels into the tip jar, hoping they make an impressive clatter. She takes her cup to the kiosk for milk and sugar. Her days of lattes are over. They're too expensive. Even plain old coffee is an indulgence now. She imagines Jay's going to pick up the tab at the meeting again today, trying to impress Camiso. He claims he splits all his business expenses with Karen, but Beth can't prove it. She doesn't go through his wallet. Maybe she should start. He and Karen are such good friends. Have been for so many years. Would there be hotel receipts? Flowers? Stop. You're just torturing yourself. A man walks up beside her, wearing a light beige suit and tie. He tries to fix his coffee, but knocks the cup and it tips slightly, fresh coffee burning his hand. Damn, he hisses, shaking out his fingers. You okay? I think so, he says with a laugh. He grabs some napkins to wipe up the mess. As he turns, Beth sees his left arm is in a sling. Can I help you? She asks. That would be great, thanks. Say when. She picks up the sugar and begins to pour. When? Thanks. She puts the jar down, but he's still staring at her. I hate to be rude, but aren't you Beth Crawford? She feels the cool weight of being recognized. It's something that never happens. She's so far from home. Yeah, well, I used to be. It's Beth Montgomery now. She looks at him more closely. He's clean-shaven, with dark hair, parted on the side, glasses. A welcome stranger, with kind eyes. But he doesn't look familiar. Have we met?
Not officially, no. But I thought it was you. This is so incredible.
It is?
You're a pianist, right?
Beth gives a dry laugh, feeling a dull kick in her heart. Well, I used to be that too, she says, going back to her cup.
I knew it. I saw you play in Boston years ago.
Forget the name of the place. I used to dabble a bit myself. He mimes playing a piano with his free hand.
But I was never good enough. Law school was next.
I see. Well, wish I'd done that too. He laughs.
Don't even think about it. You're way too talented to waste your life behind a desk.
Don't be too sure of that, she grumbles, half to herself.
So, are you still playing?
Not professionally, no. I'm teaching now. Why is she telling a stranger that? She lets a moment of embarrassment pass. The kids are great. It's very gratifying. She lets the lie sit between them. But no, I don't perform anymore.
Well, that's too bad. Well, not bad that you're teaching. Your students are very lucky,
he says, smiling. Thank you, she says, unable to muster another word. Why hasn't she left yet? Why hasn't he? They're just standing there, staring at each other. Well, nice to meet you,
Tony,
he says. Tony.
You too.
She gives him one last smile and goes to walk away, but it's as if a string has connected them. She feels the knot around her heart loosen a bit, and she hangs back, a natural smile broadening on her face. Can I just say thank you? She asks him.
You already did.
No, I mean, really. I needed this today. This new student of mine, barely 8, just played the ass off Tchaikovsky. She's so brilliant, I could be taking lessons from her. Then I had nothing but video gamers all morning. It was so damn depressing I had to get out of there. And here you are, dusting off my ego. I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure, he says. I'd dust off your ego anytime.
Chapter 18. Jay. Tuesday afternoon. Cecconi's on Melrose is busy for lunch as usual, with fashionable tables clustered amid hedges as tall as fortress walls. Jay sits on the patio, a champagne bucket chilling beside him, an empty scotch glass on the table, his second since he got here. He wanted to arrive early and have a drink, to relax and get his bearings, and to make sure they got a good table. He senses movement and looks up from his phone. The hostess leads Karen Burns over. She does look fabulous in that red suit, which fits snugly around her curves, professional but sexy. She's not wearing a blouse underneath, and her long, dark hair is smooth and gleaming. Commisso follows behind. As usual, he wears expensive pinstripes, and his hair is slicked back, his gold watch and tie clip glinting in the sun. A real estate developer Karen knew. He wanted to get into the film business, but he looks more like a gangster than anything else. Jay juts out his hand. Ciao, Vito. So good to see you again. Yeah, right, Commisso grunts, but he won't even meet Jay's eyes before sitting down. Jay and Karen don't kiss cheeks, as they usually do. They're keeping it professional today. They have to focus. Jay grabs the champagne out of the ice bucket and pastes a big smile on his face. Call me optimistic, he says. The waiter heads over to recite the day's specials, while another server pours the champagne. They all listen attentively, even though Jay's already decided he'll order the spaghetti bolognese, one of the cheapest dishes on the menu. Karen orders frugally too, margarita pizza, and they both skip the appetizers. Jay hates all this scrimping, but he doesn't have a choice, especially when Commisso orders carpaccio to start and Maine lobster at market price. Jay is adding up the tab in his mind. Ka-ching! He picks up his glass to make a toast, but Commisso ignores him, taking a swallow of champagne and turning to Karen. "Did you talk to Kate Hudson yet?" Jay interjects with a laugh, making it sound good-natured. "Not yet, but it's incredible Mila's interested. She looked at the script and she loves it. We're in negotiations with her agent right now." But as Jay smiles and tries to act charming, another voice runs through his head. "All we need is for you to give us the upfront money you promised, asshole. Then we can attach her, for Christ's sakes. You have no idea how this business works." Karen, meanwhile, has a hopeful lilt in her voice. "Actually, we're really lucky Mila's considering. She's perfect for the part, don't you think?" Jay nods and sips his champagne as they dissect the actress's credits. He's drinking faster than the others, and his glass is almost empty. He picks up the bottle and refills it, shifting his focus to the conversations around him. The laughter and the watches and the suits and the multi-million-dollar deals that must be getting made. Ka-ching! "Don't worry," he tells himself. "It's gonna work. Camiso will cave. If not today, then tomorrow. Just stay cool." So he sits there grinning like an idiot, trying to drink to take the edge off, when all he wants to do is jump down the bastard's throat and scream, "Give us the money, you prick! Stop dicking around!"
Chapter 19. Cassie. Tuesday afternoon. Cassie wipes her fingerprints off the hotel pen and adjusts the notepad on the dented pillow. "Dear Matt, I had to go. Thanks for everything. Love, Kathy. XO." She can't risk him getting back early and finding her here. She hikes the red duffel bag over her shoulder, grabs the suitcase, and looks around, making sure she hasn't forgotten anything. The suite is littered with miniature bottles of vodka and empty snack bags. She didn't want to take a chance ordering room service and seeing anyone, so she subsisted on fare from the minibar. Her gaze travels to the laptop, and she resists the urge to steal it as much as she needs it. She doesn't want him reporting anything to the police. He has to remember this as a sweet dream, something that almost didn't happen. The way the shooting at the house didn't happen. Or the kid in the car. She takes a deep breath and opens the door, peeking out. There's a housekeeping cart in the hallway and a maid vacuuming somewhere, but otherwise the corridor is empty. She hurries toward the elevators, letting the door lock behind her. There had still been no news of the kid. Maybe she'd imagined it. Jesus, she wishes she had. But she knows it happened. She has muscle memory of that shove in her shoulder from the recoil, the passenger window shattering. She thinks she can still hear the ringing in her ears. The elevator comes and it's packed. She gets on, not making eye contact with the other guests. She wheels her luggage through the busy lobby, averting her eyes from a security guard, and walks out into the sunshine. The airport shuttle bus is waiting out front. She's timed her exit to catch it. There'd be no record of a shuttle ride, no cab driver to identify her, fewer witnesses than a bus, just an anonymous shuttle that would take her on a route from here, through shopping malls and other hotels, to the airport. But she isn't going to the airport. She's waiting for a chance to call Beth again. She climbs onto the shuttle with a family of tourists and a handful of business travelers. Everyone's so clean and fresh. She feels like a bag lady in comparison, even though she showered. Twice. She drops into a seat at the very back, her knee pumping with nerves. She's used to living life on the edge, not knowing for sure where her next meal was coming from, her next high, sometimes not even sure where she'd sleep at night. But this is much worse. A churning in her mind, chewing down possibilities. It's too quiet. She needs her iPhone playlist, with everything from Ella Fitzgerald to Eminem to take her mind off things. but there's only the murmur of strangers. Bang! She jumps. A man has simply unlocked the handle of his rolling suitcase, but it sounded like a gunshot to her. It reminds her of last night. She had no intention of shooting him. But then he drove to that dark parking lot. Fucking bitch. Reaching out for her, his hand grabbing her breast. He wasn't afraid of her. He must have known she wouldn't shoot him. She tried to push him off, but he grabbed something out of the back of his jeans. His arm curled and she saw the silhouette of a gun. He struggled to aim it on her, but she grappled with his arm, their guns clanking against each other. She saw his wrist tense, blue veins popping. What sounded like a grenade exploded next to her head. The window splintered beside her like an instant winter's frost. Another shot. But this time, she felt the vibration in her own arm, the ache in her shoulder. He toppled toward her, wailing in pain. She tried to back out of the car, grappling with the duffel bag, reaching for the door handle, but he flailed for her and managed to grab the ends of the wig. If he'd actually caught her hair, she might not have gotten away. She yanked it back from him, clutched the door handle, and tumbled backward out of the car, the red bag rolling out with her. He was still sprawled sideways on the front seat, gasping, choking. She scrambled to her feet and yanked open the back door, grabbed the suitcase. She slammed the door, bang, and ran off through the darkness. She heard that ringing in her ears, tasted smoke in her mouth. She waited in different chinks in the night, listening to sirens come and go, and to silence, wondering if she'd killed him.
Chapter 20. Good. Tuesday afternoon. In the living room of the rental house, everyone works methodically, blotting, measuring, collecting. Good stands at the broken window with the blanket over it, looking back over his shoulder, analyzing the angles of shots. He's waiting to hear from the task force about Butler's field tapes. He needs access to them for the investigation, but they were tangling him in red tape. Maybe they didn't trust him anymore. Maybe they were already talking about taking him off the case. He tries not to think about it, tries to focus on the scene, the mayhem he remembers when he arrived last night. Curtis Butler's body was behind the table, beneath a window. He must have been shot by someone on the couch. There's a large blood stain on the carpet in front of it, and the blood type matches Squires's. They need to run DNA to be certain, but he's probably injured. Judging from the angle, Squires shot Jules Williams at the table as well. The floor squeaks as he walks down the hall to the large blood stain outside the bedroom. Taking into account the angle, the spent shell, and Robert Hackett's body in front of the door when he arrived, Hackett must have been the one to shoot Arkell Mitchell from behind. Why was Mitchell walking away from the room? Then there's the ragged hole in the plywood door, another in the hallway where the bullet lodged into the wall. Someone was inside the bedroom shooting out as well. They're running ballistics to be sure, but there's a good chance this gun is a match to the Alvarez shooting. It's the same caliber bullet, same general neighborhood, and both incidents occurred within hours of each other. For a Monday night, that was a lot of action, even in L.A. He steps into the bedroom. Fingerprint powder blackens the walls and furniture, and the striped bottom sheet has been placed into evidence. Dawes, speaking with an investigator, notices him and comes over. They found this on the bedding. She hands him a small, clear tube. Blonde hair, but forensics says it's a synthetic polymer. Good squints at the tube and the long fibers that resemble curled fishing line. From a wig? Exactly. She's in disguise for some reason. She and Squires must be worried she'll be recognized. Check Squires' associates again. We're probably not looking for a blonde anymore. I'm already on it. So, what do you think happened? The kid's brother didn't see anyone with her last night. They probably knew she had a better chance of getting a ride if she was alone. True. Maybe Squires was waiting for them somewhere. Alvarez pulled the gun when he realized he'd been set up. gets shot in the process? It's plausible, but it's sloppy, risky. He lets out a long, frustrated sigh. Then he frowns, sniffing the air, a familiar scent tugging at his senses. He leans next to the light switch and inhales sharply. Beneath the scent of harsh resins in the fingerprint powder and stale gun smoke, he smells it. Windex. It's an ironically happy smell for Good, reminding him of his grandmother cleaning house on Saturday mornings. But as he glances down, he sees something on the floor behind the dresser. He eases the piece away from the wall and picks up a small, round object about the size of a pea. He holds it up to the light, peering through a hole drilled in the center. It's a wooden bead.
Chapter 21. Beth. Tuesday evening. Beth stands in front of the bedroom mirror, blotting her red lipstick. She hasn't worn such a bright color in years, but she feels energized tonight. Bumping into that old fan of hers at Starbucks turned her whole day around. It was like kismet or something. To be so depressed about work, about Jay, about everything. Your students are very lucky, he'd said, with that warm smile on his face. Men still notice her sometimes, even if Jay doesn't. He's in the bathroom, shaving for the second time that day, going on about how they have to prepare for another grilling from his parents about the film tonight. That movie is all he thinks about anymore. She didn't tell him about Tony, but he'd noticed she was in good spirits when she got home.
Somebody's in a good mood tonight,
he said when she came in the door. She just smiled and waltzed past him without saying a word. Part of her wanted to tell him, to see if he'd get jealous. But what if he didn't even care? That would be the worst of it. To try to get her own husband jealous, only to realize it's impossible. Besides, it feels more exciting to keep it to herself. What was his name again? Tony? Maybe he works in the area. Maybe I'll see him again. Jay comes into the bedroom to put on a fresh shirt and finish a tumbler of scotch. She bristles, as if he can read her thoughts. Can you see the price tag on this? She asks, turning to face him, adjusting a blue floral scarf around her neck. I want to wear it one more time before I bring it back. He frowns at her.
But I thought you loved that scarf.
I do. But we can't afford a $200 scarf right now, and there's still time to get a refund.
Beth, we can afford a $200 scarf.
No, we can't.
Then why did you buy it?
She sighs forlornly, remembering the sick feeling in her stomach as she stood in Barney's, justifying putting the scarf on her Visa card. Because the girl said it brought out the blue in my eyes.
It does bring out the blue in your eyes.
That horrible tension, where she both wanted and didn't want something, floods through her, as if wanting itself was a dangerous state. I still have to take it back. I don't need it right now.
Whatever,
Jay mumbles, as if he can never win. The house phone rings and he goes to the nightstand to answer.
Payphone? Welcome to the 90s.
His voice is sharp as he picks up.
Yeah?
But then it softens into a laugh.
Oh, right. Sorry, yeah. Just a sec.
He turns the receiver toward his chest, wincing a bit.
I forgot to tell you. Some chick called for you today.
Who?
Cassie, somebody?
Beth feels a small tremor. Cassie Ogilvy?
I guess, yeah. She said Cassie O.
There's a moment when Beth feels nothing. She can't even move, the way a lone doe might freeze after sensing a predator in the woods.
You okay?
Jay asks, frowning. She nods. I think so. She walks slowly across the room and takes the phone. She holds it for a moment before sitting down on the bed. It can't be. Hello? A raspy voice calls out, Hey, Bee. Beth can't believe it. It's her. There's no question. After all these years? Cass? She says, a quaver in her voice. Who else? This is so awesome. I can't believe I found you. She seems breathless, excited, different, the same. I'm not getting you at a bad time, am I? No, not at all. Not really. Her heart squeezes in on itself. She's had this dream many times in her life. This nightmare. She knew it would happen. They were inseparable in college. That's what everyone said, like sisters. As Jay goes into the bathroom to splash on cologne, Beth lowers her voice. Cass, what's going on? Where are you? I'm in town, man. I'm in LA. I got a gig coming up in Monterey. Thought I'd give you a buzz on my way through. Was that your husband who answered? Yeah. In LA? Good God. But then she can't help herself. She falls into her old pattern of worrying. Is everything okay? Sure. I mean, okay? Beth hears that smoky inside laughter she knew so well. I'm not in any trouble, if that's what you mean. I just wanted to say hi. Well, hi. She tries to laugh, tries to sound normal and happy. This can't be happening. Beth took Jay's name. How did Cassie find her? She thought she said goodbye to this girl ages ago. She's been trying to avoid her all these years. The drugs, the drinking, all these thoughts pressing together, nothing making sense, like the din of an orchestra warming up. Then her old friend's voice cuts through, a cymbal crash that stops everything, and the curtain rises on the opening scene. Why don't we go for a drink or something? Catch up. Now? No, not now. Laughter again. Like, not this minute. I mean, later. For the first time, Beth is happy about their plans for the night. Sorry, Cass, I can't. We're on our way out to dinner with my in-laws. So, how about later, then? Cassie presses. I can't come out all this way and not see you, Beth. Come on, don't break my heart. She looks at Jay, who's dabbing gel in his hair in the bathroom, lifting up the little pieces, twisting them this way and that, absorbed with himself. I'm serious. I miss the hell out of you. Dude, come on. For old time's sake. Pretty please? Beth thinks about it. What choice does she have? Cass never could take no for an answer. Sure, she says finally, but it feels as if she's just stepped off a cliff. She lowers her voice and says, It'll give me a good reason to leave early. Cassie laughs. Awesome. How about this place called Footsie's? You know it? I can find it. Great. Say 10ish? Yeah, that should work. Excellent. Can't wait. See you then. Love you. Love you, too. Beth hangs up, but she doesn't move from the bed. She lets the phone fall into her lap. Blast from the past? Jay comes into the bedroom, buttoning his cuffs. Yeah, an old friend of mine. Old friend? He raises his eyebrows at her. She shakes her head as if to clear it and stands up. Yeah, freshman year at college, we shared a dorm room, she says, still stunned. She was in the vocal program. Such a talented singer. Jazz mostly. Some people thought she sounded like Amy Winehouse. Are you sure I never told you about her? Cassie Ogilvy? Nah, I'd remember that name. Any relation to the advertising people? Ogilvy. They're huge. Not that I know of. She never talked about that anyway. I don't think she was very well off at all. She was there on a scholarship. Dropped out after the first year. She was so irresponsible. A real party girl. She motions to the photo of the beautiful white mansion on landscaped grounds, the ocean in the background. She spent that last summer with us in Southampton. God, how long ago was that? 12 years, I guess. We had a fight that summer. I don't even remember what it was about. We lost touch after that. I lost touch after that. Beth has braced herself for this for years, Cassie coming back into her life. But now that it's happened, she's not sure how it makes her feel. Stripped, vulnerable, but not alone anymore. To tell you the truth, I'm surprised she's still alive. Jay gives a dark laugh. What? Nothing, she says, but I really wish you hadn't answered. How come? She sighs heavily. There are some people you just want to forget.
Chapter 22. Cassie. Monday night. The blue suitcase sits open on the bed as Cassie throws in crumpled t-shirts, jeans, and flimsy underthings. Her blonde wig sits on the dresser, next to the gun. She hasn't turned on a lamp. They might be watching the house, so she works in the light of the setting sun. She's already packed Rick's bag with every